I don't vote against the opposition because of the time violation. However, I do stop paying attention to anything that's said past that time mark. And I think that at that point it becomes much easier for me to vote on the permutation because, I mean, that's where the majority of your time spent is answering it. I also think, absent that, there needs to be more attention to the permutation in general. I get there's a time frame issue, but in the proposition's rebuttal speech, he explains the permutation is not a time frame because we could do essentially the same actions, at the same time, and so that the action that the opposition takes in order to use the counterplan as a way to then respond to have a ruling and then do something, the ruling can actually happen, and we could then instantaneously be able to stop it. So essentially, Fiat could be able to get through those things, which he explains is not a then do it now and do it later type issue in order to get past the hypocrisy thing. I think that there's two things that the opposition should do. One is explain how essentially the response to it, the hypocrisy dissad, is going to be a disadvantage to doing them simultaneously because there has to be a thoughtful implementation of these practices or implementation of the ruling versus just having that ruling come into existence. And I think that you could do that by better impacting out why hypocrisy is bad opposed to predominantly just making it be a solvency takeout. And I think that would give more offense in order to gain traction against the types of things that you're debating in this specific round. I also think that it would be good to establish offense against the case more directly in that first proposition speech, so that way first opposition speech, so that way the proposition is forced to go ahead and answer those things simultaneously. I also think that the proposition does a good job at sort of responding to all of the opposition's arguments, and I think the opposition does a good job at responding as well. I think that both speeches could probably do a better job at framing how my ballot should function and how I should order and sequence things, and I think that would be helpful. I also think that both sides should be reading and or citing evidence, so that way there could be a debate over which evidence is better or more credible in these sort of instances. But I ultimately think the sanctions would be able to resolve most of the opposition's problems because there was evidence on that question and it explained as being distinctly different. And I don't think that the counterplan necessarily proves itself as being a better option than the more guaranteed solvency mechanism that can happen instantaneously than the affirmative plan. I think better impact analysis by the opposition would have been able to get me to vote that way. I also think that the permutations, more answers on it besides just can't be done, as well as an explanation why debating about things like time frame is good, because the more that is proven as something that's beneficial educationally, the easier it is for judges in general to say, I'm not going to allow for the permutation because it would deny being able to have this education of when it should be debated about. And I think the proposition should also make some arguments about how it will take a long time, or it will be a very lengthy process for that delay for their plan to actually be realized as part of it. So the built-in offense to counterplan this is that the acting immediately is desirable, which is why the plan alone is always going to be the best option, because we have to enact immediately, and that should have been more of a core component of your speech. Thank you very much for debating. I think you both did a great job, and I hope you enjoyed your time participating in the tournament.